everyone. Welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. I want to ask you, speaking of charities, about Prince Harry actually going after the Daily Mail again. I didn't realize this. This surprised me. We've heard that Prince Harry sent a letter to the Daily Mail to argue Andrew Loney's book. He said, I never pushed my uncle. I never punched my uncle and gave him a bloody nose. And I never heard Prince Andrew say any of those negative things about Meghan Markle to me, that she was too old for me, that I was bonkers for not doing my due diligence. Yes, that went mainstream. We understood that he was pushing back on that. But apparently he's also pushing back on the story that he would set up a rival charity to rival Sentebale. This surprised me that he's pushing back on this as well, mostly because it just feels like they're very reactive right now. Is he just feeling sensitive right now? Or B, does he really hate how that would make him look to set up a rival charity?
Well, I think on the first point, Andrew Loney, is a respected author and would have cleared everything legally. And I think I'm right in saying that he said if he wants to sue. But
Yeah.
I mean, if the Mail were running it, they would have had their due diligence done on that. They would have, the book would have indemnified them as such through the publisher's lawyers. So, and they didn't go massive on it though. The Mail, they had it as a little strip. It wasn't a huge. You felt that if they really believed in the story, they would have probably had it on the front page. It was a huge story. So I don't know. It's one of those ones. If Harry says it didn't happen, then he's going to argue his case, I'm sure, over time with his lawyers. And I must admit, I'd never heard of it. But as to the other side of these things, I think see with Harry there when he was arguing strong, you do tend to feel that he must be safe in his grounds. The other business about the charity, I was a bit surprised because when the fallout happened with the Sentebale and he was saying he was going to walk away, and did walk away eventually, there was a sense that he also said that he was going to do stuff for the kids of Africa. He wasn't just going to walk away and abandon them. He was going to be really working in there. Well, how's he going to do that? I mean, if he's not... The idea, someone must have leaked somewhere that they were setting up an alternative vehicle or charity or something, because it was quite strongly written. But his people have come back and said, no, that's not the case, but he will be basically supporting the kids of Africa. It's all very sad, really, because really this I feel should have been resolved somewhere along the line. A lot of this stuff, a lot of charities go through ups and downs, massive roller coaster rides. In the whole time of, say, the King's, which is now the King's Trust, the Prince's Trust, they would have been ups and downs, but you keep it private and you keep working with the people around you. And I think it's a real sadness, I think, that Sentebale and him are party company, because it would have been something that I think that would have been a legacy for him.
And Richard, when it comes to Sentebale, could he start a new charity, or would it be best for him to find existing charities and say, is there any way I can offer you assistance in Africa? Or, are you concerned because Dr. Sophie Shendaka specifically told media that she felt like Harry's brand was toxic, and his brand, after having gone after the British royal family, hurt Sentebale more than it helped Sentebale?
Yes, this is the interesting point, and I think it's later in the year that we'll be seeing some figures from Sentebale and seeing how much they are making, if indeed anything. I mean, all this is going to affect it. The poor children, of course, will be suffering at the end of all this. Is what one comes into mind. I mean, one sees that, of course, he would operate if he did set up something new. And I mean, this was a story, right, that, it splashed all over the net and so on. I mean, with quotes that indicated that they were thinking of it. And I don't think that it's been denied. But I would have thought Prince Cecil might, because remember, this was not only Harry's founding it in honor of the Princess of Wales, and naming it after her favorite flower. But of course, Princeso, in memory of Queen Mamohato, his mother. So I would have thought that, I mean, that if they wanted to, I mean, that Lesotho, which has such a high rate of HIV/AIDS orphans, and also, of course, it helps young people generally, and of course, it's now been extended to Botswana and perhaps elsewhere in Africa. I think this is one of the clashes as to where or how you fundraise successfully, should it be in the United States with Harry's polo and so on. And one recalls the problems that Dr. Sophie and Meghan had at that polo match, which again is another subject. But also, I mean, should it be London based, or should that African charity be primarily African based, and how should it be arranged? I'd have thought if they wanted to, that they probably could. I wonder, you do wonder how Sentebale is going to survive this, because I mean, it's absolutely toxic. The other thing I found so interesting, which wasn't very widely picked up on, is this odd business that there was a lot of criticism of the Charity Commission, of course, about how it had got toxic and both sides were at fault, and no, they hadn't found, although was it their task to investigate, this wasn't gone into cases of misogynoir and bullying and so forth. But there was a lot of criticism about the way that, for example, there was no disputes procedure or complaints procedure. They needed to define the role of patron, which implied to me that Harry possibly was, since he'd done a lot for the charity and raised a lot of money for it, was basically doing what he liked. That it not been well run previously. Whatever's happening now, I mean, we'll obviously have to see. So I would have thought that there was a certain opportunity. But the thing is, the publicity is, of course, so toxic. But anything they do, anything he does, he will get publicity for. So I'd have thought if he's devastated by the result and the fact that he's now divorced from the charity that he was responsible for co-founding, I wouldn't be surprised.
And Robert, let me ask you, do you have any insight on what he was recently doing in Botswana? Do you think that potentially he could have been strategizing something there? Or we heard that he met his mom, his second mom, while he was there and spent some time with family friends. Maybe he was just licking his wounds.
No, he loves Africa. I was out with him four times in Lesotho, at least 3 times in Lesotho and other trips he's been to. He loves being there. He loves being amongst the nature, loves the nature, loves the wildlife, loves the people. And I think he's genuine and was always genuine about trying to help people in Africa, particularly the kids. I saw him with them, and they were, there were really close bonds. It wasn't done. They didn't know who he was. They just knew he was a guy that was bringing hope to them. And I think his last charity touched something like 100,000 lives. It was deep and did a good job. Now, I think he will be licking his wounds. Yeah, I think he'll be upset that this has happened. And I think there's fault on both sides, to be honest. I think that the other trustees walked away. The board, there's obviously a problem with the chairman that between personalities. And I don't think it's all Harry's fault. I think there's problems on both sides. But as Richard said quite rightly, the people that suffer here are the kids, because it was reaching out. And it doesn't really matter how much, as long as you do it in a legal way. It doesn't really matter how you're raising the money, because what really matters here is the money reaches the people that need it. And I think that that sort of message has been lost in this very toxic row. And I think that both sides are to blame. Maybe Harry, maybe was trying to run it as if it was his own thing because he set it up. But I think that the new chairman of the board also wanted to do it her way. And none of us even heard of her, before. So in terms of her reach in getting money in, we'll have to wait and see, as Richard says. But I think it's an opportunity lost. And it was a shame that they never got around the table and were able to work it out. But clearly, there's a real breakdown in communication
here. Robert, is this a real bruise on Prince Harry's legacy?
Yeah.
Or do you think he
can? I think he can move on. I think that what he should be doing is seeing how it impacted, how this whole business of him leaving the royal family and all the problems that go with it impacted on something that he really deeply cared about, something that predated Meghan. Remember, Meghan started getting involved in things after, this was something he started when he was, a very, very young man, and on that sort of gap year that preceded him going to Sanders. So I feel that he really will be filling this, particularly as it was named after his mum, and also, in memory of Prince Seise's mum. But the reality is he's going to watch what happened here, because something like Invictus Games, huge legacy for him. Look, if the same things start happening with that as well, there's going to be a trend. So I think he's got to learn from his mistakes to make sure that that these things aren't about his personality, and they focus on where the money reaches, and also that they surround themselves with people that they can work with. Now, that has been an issue we've seen with Harry and Meghan quite a lot. But when it comes to a charity and something where she's really making a difference, and both the Invictus Games and Sentebale both really made a difference, you've got to sort of take your ego out of it. It's got to be not about you. It's about them. It's about the people you're supposed to be meeting and helping.
They start getting problems, because I think initially in the United States, I think there was a lot of sympathy for them, and they have got worldwide interest because, of course, of the situation that they created. So I can see why she's hypersensitive on this, but I don't think that they've handled it very well, especially losing so many staff, and especially being so nasty, because those three, the Oprah, Harry and Meghan, the docuseries, and Spare, I mean, to do that to your family, and remember, of course, only her mother is in contact from her side. Every time I listen to her podcast or listen to what she says or read it, and she's always got impeccable sentiments that nobody could fault. But you actually realize that, in fact, charity does begin at home as well. So if you're not getting on with anybody except her mother, something is very, very wrong. I always thought something was very wrong when initially Harry never met Thomas Markle. That has never been explained, and it made no sense to me.
That's a very good point. Robert, Richard just mentioned with Love, Meghan. I'm assuming you've seen the season 2 trailer. I'd love your reaction to just that first few minutes of a tease of what's to come for season.
I have. I mean, just to sort of get a bit of balance from what I was saying that yes, I know that they've attacked the family, but they aren't the first to have done this. Princess Diana did this with the Panorama interview. She did it with the book which she collaborated with the Diana, Her True Story. Prince Charles did it with the book with Dibblewood. He attacked his parents and criticized their parenting. These things have happened before, but the key difference is here is they were speaking honestly and openly, okay, but they weren't monetizing it. What they have done in these, trying to speak out and get their point of view across, they've made fortunes on the back of it, and that does stick in the throat a little bit, in terms of the millions that have been made. They've monetized an attack upon an institution that made Harry's privileged life very privileged. She, to be fair, has come from pretty much nothing, has built herself up, and has actually, she's not a hypocrite. If she's anything, she's actually doing exactly what she set out to do. Her latest thing, I actually think that, she's been quite fair in what she's doing. She started to say, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing, and like it or loathe it, I have got followers, I have got supporters that believe in what I do, and I'm just going to sell to them. Now, I think her latest trailer, everything is saccharine. It's all too much for me, but she does appeal to certain people. She does have a voice, and that's really all that this actress that appeared in Suits, wasn't particularly famous, certainly this side of the world, has managed to achieve worldwide fame and has achieved a voice in an audience. So I can't really be overly critical of her, because she's many, many things, but she's not really a hypocrite. She set out very early on to make a name for herself, and she's done that, and she's monetized it. The one I'm concerned about is Prince Harry, a guy that's raised huge privilege, paid for by a lot of his life, really by not through any fault of his own. It was his birth from the British taxpayer, and then to launch such an attack upon, as Richard says, the very people that the very people that really gave you that life, that loved you, supported you. This is the guy that, a few years ago was standing up at Buckingham Palace at his father's 70th birthday, really praised him, saying he was one of the greatest fathers in the world. Well, what changed? He married someone, and he completely did a reverse ferret on the whole thing. Now, he's the one I'm critical of. Actually, a lot of people really attack Meghan. I think Meghan is just straight down the line, and she's doing what she's doing, and she's not going to change.
Yeah.
And some people will hate her. Lots of people seem to, but she has a lot of followers, and that's that she has a voice, and that's what she set out to do.
Yeah, Robert, but what Richard was saying was that she is a hypocrite because she's doing this is my
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong, but she is a hypocrite if she wants us to sit down and buy a Christmas special from her. She's going to teach us how to host our families at home, our loving families. When, you just said it yourself, what's changed? Meghan enters the picture and all of a sudden Prince Harry's heavily critical of his father, publicly heavily critical of his father.
Yeah, but she won't be the only one who's having problems with their families at Christmas. I hear what you're saying, but as far as she's concerned, her family will be Harry and the children, and that's how she'll be viewing that, a happy family. Now, I agree with what both you and Richard say. There is hypocrisy there, but what she set out to do, she is not ever. She was not born into royalty. She hasn't done anything other than commercialize her fame, and that is what she's all about. It's ruthless. Harry's caught in the crossfire. The royal family have been absolutely trashed by her, but this is what she is always about. Now, I think that people like William, the king, others realized this very early on. They saw what was coming, and all William did was try to warn his brother, which led to even more bigger rift than there should have been, and there is now in existence. All they were trying to do was saying, this woman is toxic and dangerous, and we do not think that she fits. He didn't take notice of that, and now he's in the position. What is his position? He looks terribly miserable all the time. We don't know what he does on a daily basis, but he's made his bed, and it's him I'm critical of, not her, because at the end of the day, he married her and he brought her into this family. It was his decision, and I can't remember too many people dancing in the street. That's all. I was there at the day, and I don't remember them dancing in the street. No. Certainly not in the royal family, I don't think.
The ruthless observation, I think, is important. And you saying this was always her ultimate objective, because remember, it was Camilla Tominey that reported that Meghan and Harry were meeting with Quibi, the micro video site, before they even stepped down as working royals. So
do you remember that one famous scene when they were working for the royal family at a film launch, a Disney film launch, and the chair of Disney was there, and she was trying to, Harry was saying, she does voiceover work. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
You remember elephants, Robert?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, that came from.
That's right. Do you remember? That's right. My wife does voiceover work. I mean, it was incredible, really, that this sort of stuff was going on. But I just think that love is a strange thing, and he obviously fell head over heels in love with her. But the royal family were quite aware of what was going on quite early on, and there's no doubt that that William was concerned about the future and tried to reason with his brother, and I'm pretty sure, but that the king did too.
Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon.